Hey listeners, this episode is brought to you by EF World Journeys. Today's travelers want more from their vacation. That's why more people are turning to travel professionals to help them explore the world with confidence. For nearly 35 years, EF World Journeys has been the go-to guided experiential travel company for leisure travelers who want to learn more about people, places, and cultures around the world. Its brands EF Ultimate Break, EF Go Ahead Tours, and EF Adventures serve everyone from Gen Z to baby boomers and help tens of thousands of US and Canadian travelers every year explore 400 bucket list destinations. EF World Journeys is one of North America's biggest guided group tour companies, and its expert planned immersive itineraries focus on the big moments and little things that make travel and meeting new people so rewarding. It's experiential travel that goes deeper, where every journey builds a connection, inspires wellness, and fuels a lifelong love of learning. EF World Journeys, guided by experts, driven by curiosity. To learn more, go to efworldjourneys.com. Welcome back to the Skift Travel Podcast. My name is Will Slickers, the Director of Video and Audio Strategy here at Skift. And I'm so excited to bring another Sessions episode, which is basically where you get to hear what you missed from Skift Global Forum. This session episode is featuring Rafid Ali, our CEO and founder of Skift, and of course, the one and only Brian Chesky, CEO and founder of Airbnb. To get access to our other live sessions from Skift Global Forum, make sure that you are a Skift Pro subscriber to get the full library of sessions. If you are not a Skift Pro subscriber, you won't be able to access all of them, but we'll make a few publicly available on our YouTube or other channels like our website. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for another Sessions episode releasing next week.
Okay, hey folks, so Brian is not here in person. He's going to do by video again. I'm going to give him a hard time about it, but hopefully he'll be here next year. He's promised to be here in person next year. So can we bring Brian on?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. That stubble looks good on you, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I did it for Skift.
Appreciate it. So this is, I think, our year 5 of talking consecutively. Actually, year 4. Year 5, you're going to be here in person. You're promising us.
Yes. I guess I made that promise, so now I will keep my promise.
You'll keep your promise. Well, thank you again for doing this. So I'm going to start with the question not for you. I'm going to start with the question for the audience. Here's the good news. He cannot see you when you raise your hands. So you are free to raise your hands. So when Airbnb recently expanded beyond stays as well as experiences into services, how many of you have bought into the story of their expansion? Or how many have not bought into the story of the expansion? Okay, so Brian, only few people have the courage to raise their hands, which means everybody has bought your story of expanding into the services part. So that's the good news. So what do you say to skeptics? Certainly the Wall Street hasn't responded to your expansion. That's not the only thing that you're focused on. How should we think about Airbnb today? Obviously, so early in terms of launching these services. Can we quickly play the ad that they just launched? This is the first services ad, and then we're going to get into the questions, Brian.
Yeah.
Say you get a home on Airbnb with a chef's kitchen. Now you can get a chef on Airbnb to cook in it. Or if you get a ski house, now you can get an après-ski massage. Or if you get a place in the clouds, now you can get a yoga teacher to keep you grounded. Homes, experiences, and services. Now you can Airbnb more than an Airbnb. If you love your peaceful place, but during festival season, the town goes a little nuts, Airbnb your home and get paid to get away.
Again, the second one is about hosting, but we'll come to the first one. So Brian, give your sense of why we should buy into your story about the expansion.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just say, I think like as being a public company CEO for 5 years, what I would say is for the most part, investors buy into results. not just ideas. And I think people are waiting and seeing how this plays out. And what I would say, this is going to be a long game. It's going to take some time to build. But one of the things we noticed is that the vast majority of guests on Airbnb have told us that they would buy a service if it was offered to them as part of an attachment of a trip. We also found that one of the top reasons that people stay in hotels and not homes is because hotels have services that Airbnbs typically do not have. And so we thought this was a huge opportunity, not only to have a multi-billion-dollar revenue expansion line, but also to get people that would otherwise stay in a hotel to stay in Airbnb. And for people to stay in Airbnbs, like let's say I'm staying in Lake Tahoe, or I'm staying in the Hamptons, which is closer to where you are right now. I have this giant house and I can go out to a restaurant and eat. And some nights you'll do that. But other nights you might want to have somebody come to your house. And we notice this especially in where you're going to have a little bit more space. Maybe to zoom out a little bit more though, Amazon's a huge company and there is no Amazon for services. Amazon is really for anything that comes in a cardboard box. Now, I'm not saying we're going to capture all the Amazon of services. What I'm saying is that it's amazing. There's not one app in the world, a global app, where you can hit a button and have a chef come to your house and make a meal. And that is not a completely obscure thing. A lot of people like massages. If you can get food to your door, why can't you get a masseuse to your door? A lot of people use Airbnbs for weddings, and they want to be able to get their hairstyle, their makeup styled. And especially in a vacational district, there's not a lot of people. What place do you go to? So we fundamentally think that there's so many different types of services. And we don't need to build an Amazon-style business where they're doing hundreds of billions of dollars GBV. We think we could do something much smaller and make a huge impact on the business.
So
the other thing I would just,
So my question is the usage. So I totally get the idea of services for the travelers, meaning the people who are staying in Airbnbs. Do you foresee, and I guess you've said that as part of the launch, the daily use, like for me, I live in New York City, is Airbnb going to be on top of my mind when I want to order a haircut? Well, I don't need a haircut, but if I, sorry, bad example. If I needed a masseuse, for instance.
Very possibly. We've already seen that about 10% of our bookings in Los Angeles, for example, which is our big launch market, are locals. I think that's without marketing to locals. People don't think of us for local use. So I do think that a bit more of our business is going to be local use. I don't know how much. There's a really, really big question about how much the market. There is the issue of like repeat use, that at some point the commission structure has to change with repeat use. But even so, there's a lot of opportunities to still capture local demand. I think it's a problem. I mean, I think of these services like having a chef, having a masseuse, having a photographer. I actually had to find a photographer to get family photos. Like, how do you actually find a photographer family photos for a holiday card? That's a problem too. So I do think there's a lot of categories. And by the way, we launched with 10 categories. There's dozens of more categories available that we could offer. We're just going to follow the market. And frankly, we'll let the customers decide. So we're putting these up. We're seeing what gets booked. What we found is we thought photographers and chefs would be the big winners in the beginning. We're starting to see a lot around massage and personal training. A lot of people want to do health and wellness things on vacation. So we're really going to follow some of these areas.
And so one of the things you're betting on is the attach rates for people. And for those of you who don't know what attach rates means, it's if you are in your card, for instance, card, which is not really card, but if you are choosing an Airbnb, then can you add extra services to it? That's the attach rate. How many of the 100 people that are booking Airbnb will add an experience or services, etc.? So the experience is when you launched it the first time, the attach rate obviously didn't live up to the standards that you thought it would, and it didn't work.
Right.
Why would it work this time?
Well, the first thing I would say is we only barely got experiences going and then the pandemic hit.
Right.
And then we basically cut the company almost in half. And we basically said, we're not going to focus on experiences. So we stopped investing in it. And that was probably the number one reason is just it was getting going. We stopped investing in it. We did a massive layoff. We had to focus on our business. Then we had to go public. And then we essentially spent the last 5 years rebuilding the company from the ground up. We rebuilt our technology, rebuilt our organization. And so now it's totally different. Why do I think experiences work this time? Number one, we're going to invest in it this time. We're not expecting another global pandemic. And even if there was one, this time we have the money to invest in experiences. Number two, we never did ads around experiences. We never actually marketed experiences. You just showed an ad where we're marketing homes, services, and experiences. This is a big, this is a key notion. Airbnb is one app, one brand, one customer. So we can actually take these small businesses like service experiences and we can put hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing behind them while still marketing our really big core business. So now our ads are going to talk about everything we have to offer. So number one, we're going to have more awareness. Number two, we're going to have better hosts, better supply. We only kept the very best host on Airbnb that we're getting booked. And now we have Airbnb Originals. Airbnb Originals are some of the most interesting people in the world. They're bringing a lot of traffic. 40% of bookings of Airbnb Originals are people booking them in their own city. That's also really interesting. The next thing is social media. A lot of our hosts are influencers on social media. When we launched the first time, social media was primarily not video. It was basically photo. So there really wasn't a lot of distribution. We find that now experiences are essentially distribution are on mostly TikTok and Instagram, and it's all video based. So these are, and then the fourth thing is we have rebuilt the platform from the ground up to integrate the entire system together so that we basically have all these touch points to upsell experiences. And we ask questions like, is this your first time in the city? And one of the things we missed the first time we built experiences is we built what I would describe as experiences for people's second time to Paris, right? The first time you go to Paris, you want to see the Eiffel Tower. You want to see Notre Dame. You want to see the Louvre. This is what Get Your Guide and Viator do. We really seeded that market. We're no longer seeding that. We're now going to be focused on that market. Then we have second time to city. You've seen all the landmarks. Now you want to do things that are more interesting. This is the core of Airbnb experiences. Finally, locals. We think locals are primarily Airbnb Originals. So we think experiences is actually three different markets. First time to city, which are landmarks and tourist attractions. Second time, a little off the beaten path. And then third, like local, like really unique people. So we put all this together. Fundamentally, we think this is a theory. And all we got to believe, by the way, Rafa, is this. You know, the incumbents do nearly $1 billion a year. All we got to believe is we can at least build what they built with this massive distribution. Then you have $1 billion revenue business.
So you said you're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars advertising these new extensions.
Well, wait, every year, like, let me put it this way. Every year, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising of our core business.
Right.
Like last year, we did that campaign you saw. Last year was just had homes in it. And we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it. This year, and going forward, we're going to put services experiences in those same ads.
Okay.
So the ads we were already running about homes, now we're marketing homes, and we're also marketing service experiences in the same ad. So one ad is basically advertising three businesses, not one. And so this will give us a lot more lift. We also, by the way, the launch that you came to, that got 660 million earned impressions on social media. 660 million. 13,000 press articles, which I think was more than our IPO. So it has a lot of awareness. Now, what I want to be honest about is it's going to take time to build these markets. And we're actually now, even though we launched globally, we're really focused on making it work, getting product market fit in just a few cities. Airbnb, Uber, DoorDash, we all started by making a few cities work. So that's really what we're doing. Now, as we built this platform, awareness is big. We've got over 60,000 people applied to be hosts. Now we want to build this city by city and grow it.
So in terms of the core business, which is the stays, and you've done a lot of work on over the pandemic on improving as you said, I think 45,000 hosts that were not reliable were kicked out of the system.
500,000.
500,000. And then you also obviously built a lot of new features over the years. You launched a passport as a way for people to understand who the hosts are. You've done a lot of host services. So you've yourself led a lot of these changes that have happened at Airbnb. But let me read you the growth. So Airbnb revenue growth has slowed from 40% in 2022, which obviously you were coming out of the pandemic. So obviously that was very high, to 18% in 2023, to 12% in 2024, and 9% in the first half of 2025. So, and you will probably be behind Booking.com. Well, Booking Holdings CEO just spoke right before you. You will be behind their growth rate this year. So how are you thinking about the growth rate of the business, and how patient should we be, or the investor should be? Not that we are focused primarily on the investor crowd, but how should the investors, people who are buying your stock and holding a bunch of your stock, think about this in terms of investment now versus the future?
I mean, it's a great question. Listen, I'm not happy about where the growth rate is of the company. I think Airbnb should be growing significantly faster. It should at least be growing in the teens, and I aspire to run the kind of company that be growing at more than 20% one day. To be able to do that, we need to layer on many businesses. We need to essentially accelerate our core business, and then we need to be layering on other businesses. And that is essentially the growth algorithm that we will have to get to a compounding, eventually significantly higher growth rate. I believe we're going to accelerate growth next year. I firmly believe that. We're not putting out any guidance. I don't want to overpromise what we're going to do, but I don't think that people should take our extrapolation of deceleration and extrapolate that forward. I think that I just want to give a little context. We were obviously a hyper-growth company. I started this company in my apartment with my 2 roommates. There were airbeds. We grew the company like a rocket ship. But what happened was we didn't really build a lot of the foundation to build a sustainable company, build a really good, solid, technical architecture, make sure the right organization to be able to expand. And then the pandemic hit. And the first thing we focused on with the pandemic was really cutting cost. And remember, we were never making money. We were never EBITDA profitable before the pandemic. It actually went from negative profitability, people wondering if we'll ever be a 35% margin business, to being a 34.5% to 35% EBITDA margin business consistently since the second year of being an IPO. So that was the first thing, become profitable. The second thing we realized is we're basically built to be a vacation rental company. We now need to basically rebuild the entire company from the ground up so we can have 5, 10, 15 businesses built, not just one business. And again, over many years. And so that's what we've been doing. The final stage is now we reinvent ourselves. We're going to be layering on businesses. So there's a few big bets we have. One, we're going to continue to accelerate the core business of homes.
And this is a lot of the action is outside the US, correct? A lot of the growth is outside.
Starting with our core in the US and Canada, a lot of our business is just in a few hundred cities. So we're going to focus on a few hundred cities, and we're going to increase supply in those cities. And we just did a partnership with FIFA. We're one of the global sponsors. Right. The World Cup is the largest event in human history. That's in US, Canada, Mexico. So this will be a great way to get supply. And by the way, for people watching, you might know this, but the way we grew initially was providing housing for events.
Right.
So that's the core business. We're spending a lot of energy on pricing and quality. That will be driving hundreds of millions of dollars. Then global markets, global expansion. 70% of our business is only in 5 countries. So US, Canada, Australia, UK, and France.
English foreign industries, right?
Plus France. So what about the other 215 countries? So we're going to be doing a lot of global expansion. If you didn't believe anything else, and all you believed was that we can get even half the market penetration in other countries you get in the United States, that would be a massive growth acceleration. And we just never really focused on it. So that's one thing. Then we have services and experiences. These are each going to be, I think, multi-billion-dollar businesses one day. The big question is how fast. I can't make any promises, but we're focused on this. Then we have hotels.
Yeah, talk about hotels, because you bought hotel. You were early in buying Hotel Tonight, a very innovative app. For those of you who remember, it was the name said what it did, which is if you want a hotel tonight, you can book the hotel tonight. Sam Shank, who you know very well, founded it, and then you've expanded the remit to not just Hotel Tonight, but obviously book hotels. Then you've talked over the last few weeks about getting back into the hotels and expanding it. Explain what the concrete part of that is that we should take away from.
Absolutely. Okay, the concrete thing is we are now getting serious about hotels. We bought Hotel Tonight. We always had intended to integrate it into Airbnb. Then the pandemic hit, and similar to experiences, we put everything on hold. We wanted to get service experiences out. Here's the great thing, Rafa. When we launched service experiences, we basically rebuilt the company and rebuilt the app. And almost every tab and entire architecture is rebuilt. Not just to do service experiences, but to build every new business. I learned this by talking to people at Amazon. I knew the founding CTO, Rick Dalzell of Amazon. He said that Amazon was essentially designed around ISBNs for books. And they had to basically rebuild the website to be able to sell electronics and baby gear and clothing and barbecues. And so that's what we did. It turns out a lot of the work we did building services, we now can apply to hotels. For example, a hotel is a building with different rooms. A service has different offerings. We're able to take most of the technology from services and apply it to hotels to make it extensible. It's the same architecture. And so we're now getting serious at hotels. So we're going to see more of that coming up. So we're going to bring a lot of boutiques and a lot of independent hotels on Airbnb. what we found is that the vast majority of people that come to Airbnb, if they don't find a home they like, they go to another website to book a hotel. If we just have hotels there, then they're going to get a significant amount of bookings because we are accessed by 1.6 billion devices a year. So more people use Airbnb than most apps in the world. That's number one. On the supply side, what we've heard is by especially independents and boutiques, and that's a huge percent of the market, including in Europe, they like our 15% commission or 15.5% commission. It's the lowest in the industry. So we have the lowest commission in the industry. They also like that we have American travelers. Hotels in Europe tell us that they like that we have high-income travelers that are American and they're young. Now, we don't think, like I heard a little bit of Glenn's conversation before this. I agree with Glenn. I think the travel industry, there's too much focus on competition, and there is competition, but people kind of forget this is an industry about the size of oil. And the vast majority of like travel still not even like happening between either of our platforms. So I think there's a lot of room, and I think there's an entire market and segment of people that aren't really being served or not being served properly. And we think we can serve them through collecting the very best boutiques, the very best independents, building a first-class Airbnb interface to be able to see these hotels, see these inns, see these bed and breakfasts, and give them some incremental demand with a very compelling commission rate.
So it will become a separate tab. It will become a separate tab in Airbnb in the coming months.
It will be integrated into the core tab. The homes tab will, maybe it changes to the word stays, and there will be a carousel, which is going to essentially, like a carousel is like those interface rows that you swipe, and we're going to pilot it in a few different cities, including New York, and we'll see how it goes.
And so you just changed this commission structure, which didn't really affect anybody because in the sense that the host, so for the professional property owners, you changed them to be paying 15.5% and the guest doesn't pay anything and they don't pay to you, which basically was this a precursor to sort of becoming an OTA like so that you can add hotels which have a similar structure as well?
I mean, like, first of all, service experiences, as we were building service experience, we were like, why are we going to, let's just back up. Why do we have this kind of weird commission structure? Because when I was like 26 years old and I didn't know anything, and I went to art school, Joe, Nate, and I realized like we need to have a business model. We handled money. No vacation rental app handled money. And we said, let's have a 5% commission. It was a guest fee. And then eventually we realized, oh, credit card processors are taking 3% from us. And that's how we came up with the 3% on the host fee. And eventually the 5% on the guest fee, we over time increased to about 12%. And we ended up with this legacy of 12 plus 3 or 12 and a half plus 3. It was purely organic. I would never have designed it that way. But once you have this inertia, it's like a major switch. Once we were designing service experiences, we're like, let's just do it right from the first time. Like a lot of guests complain about there's taxes, there's cleaning fees, there's service fees, there's a lot of drip pricing, and let's just have one price. Like you go to a coffee shop, there's a price of coffee and there's tax. So that's what we did. And we did it for service experience. And we said, if we're going to do it for that, why don't we make the switch to homes? That was for two reasons. Number one, for ease of use. People were confused. They were frustrated. Why is the price changing? But the other thing, and this is related to a competitive issue, a lot of API hosts, Coast Across list, property managers, were charging more on Airbnb because they charge $200 a night on Airbnb, and then we mark the price up, and they charge $200 on a competitive site, but they didn't mark the price up. So now our prices are 12% higher. And so this was, we were trying to educate them, but we started realizing people were just being really confused. And so that's partly why we went to just one host fee. And this is how the hotel industry does it. So we think it's going to be much simpler.
Let's spend the rest of the 10 minutes or so on AI because obviously, how can we not? So this is the year 3 of ChatGPT coming into existence. We're taking the world by fire. You have promised to me every year in the interview that Rafat, it's coming. The AI feature is coming for Airbnb. You said last year to me that this year will be the year. It's not here yet.
It's somewhat here, and it's not fully here. So let me tell you what's coming, and if you want, I can talk a little bit more about the industry and what to expect. So it is coming in the sense that if you ever contact customer service now in the US, You can get an AI customer service agent. We believe this is by far the best AI customer service agent in all of travel. It has reduced the need to contact a human agent by 15%. And this is a homegrown product we've used. We have as many as 10 different models. We designed a specific architecture. We trained it on tens of thousands, essentially golden conversations. And we've, as you know, 2 years ago, or a year ago, we rebuilt our whole messaging platform.
Right.
Now our messaging platform can have essentially rich user interface cards. So we're going to have an even richer interface than, say, ChatGPT or Gemini, where it's almost entirely text-based. But we're going to be able to say, if you want to have a cancellation, we can have a little card coming up saying, hit this button and cancel. So it's, it's not just text-based. So it's going to be a much richer UI. Now, next year, and this time you can hold me to, because we're working on it now, and we actually have pilots that will probably be coming out later this year, but it won't be ready for prime time next year. We're going to have AI-powered search. Right. So in the search box, you're going to be able to type in anything, like on ChatGPT or on Gemini, and you're going to be able to have a conversation with the app, and you're going to be able to begin to do that next year. So next year is the beginning, but maybe if I will, I can just give you a sense of what I think is going to happen with AI in travel.
Well, let me ask you one question on the search part. Is the matching there in terms of technology? Like, is AI search as good as search? Meaning,
yes.
Will it bring the one answer that I'm looking for versus the current search technology that's there?
Oh, in that way, probably not. I mean, for AI to know, it'd have to ask you a lot of questions. So essentially, there's two modes. You can either give it a list, or it can ask you a number of questions and help you refine. So really, we're asking a refinement question. I mean, let me give you a metaphor. So let's say when I was a kid, I would go to shopping malls, and before the internet was popular, this thing called travel agencies. And you walk in a travel agency, and imagine if the way you talk to a travel agent was the way you talk to an OTA. All you would say is, I'm going to Paris on these dates with these guests. A travel agent wouldn't give you 1,000 options because they'd ask you a lot more questions.
Right.
Like, well, why are you traveling to Paris? Is this your first time? What's your budget? What are you trying to do? Is this a special occasion? You know, you'd learn about the person. Like, what do you taste? Do you like food? Do you drink wine? Do you want to go off the beaten path? So you'd want to, do you like to stay out at night or not? So you'd have to ask a lot of questions. So I do think eventually AI search will turn into matching. It will be what we call multi-turn, where it gives you a result and then you refine the result through a conversation, which is essentially what ChatGPT is. So the refinement and the comparison will be essentially a conversation. But the key is, I do not think it's going to look like ChatGPT.
Yeah, you said that in a recent conversation. So explain why you said that.
Oh, number one, I don't know if a chat interface is the way to do e-commerce. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I happen to have a phone on me, so I'll just use a demo. Here's an iPhone, and the iPhone has a bunch of apps, and every app has a different interface. If you open the weather app, is a chatbot the best way to see the weather? If you open the alarm clock app, is that the best way to see the weather? If you open Amazon, is a chat interface the best way to buy a pair of shoes? I do not think that a chat interface is the best way to do most things. I think it has to be richer than a chat interface. I think a chat interface is replacing what we used to use Google search for. And so I think we're 3 years into ChatGPT, and essentially think of the metaphor. We have cars. The cars are like our apps. And now we invented the jet engine. We're putting a jet engine in cars. We haven't actually invented AI native applications like airplanes. And so we're 3 years post ChatGPT. And if you go to the top 50 ranked apps in the App Store, the number one app today, I think, is Gemini, actually. The number 2 app is ChatGPT. And apps 3 through 50, I think, are not AI apps. What I mean by not AI apps, including us, is you've stripped all the AI out of it, like Instagram. The experience wouldn't be that different. It's pretty much the same app as it was before. So here's my hypothesis. In the next 3 years, I don't know if it's exactly 3, but I'm guessing 3, those top 50 apps are going to all become AI apps. And it's going to happen one of 3 ways. Either Gemini, ChatGPT swallows more of the ecosystem. That would be bad for everyone that's not those 2 companies. Startups in Y Combinator or the 26-year-old version of me does an AI native company. Or companies like us and others that are on your panel become AI companies. If we don't have a lot of time to become AI companies. AI is both an existential risk to us, but if it's an existential risk to us, it's therefore an existential risk to everyone else. And therefore, it's an opportunity for us because it's an opportunity for us to get into a lot of other businesses that we might have no business going into if there wasn't technological paradigm. And so I think there's going to be a massive shift in travel. I don't know if it's 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. I'm going to guess 3 years. It might be 4 years. It's not 5. I think that's too long.
Yeah.
Where it's going to we're not going to be using apps the same way. There's not going to be a search box with a list of results, a filter panel. That's gone. That's going to go away. And I think, the reason I don't think ChatGPTs can own the whole economy is because we have access to the same models they do.
Right.
To use their models. The models are not proprietary. And the reason they don't want the models proprietary, for the most part, is they want these companies want as many companies to use their model as possible to get as much usage, to get as much data, to get as large of an install base. They want to have their enterprise business. And the Chinese models and the open source models are only a few months behind the frontier models, and they're much cheaper. So I guess all of what I'm saying is we basically rebuilt the company from the ground up to be at this moment where we could expand to services, experiences, hotels, international, and we have a whole bunch more business coming in the next 3 to 5 years. But there's a big revolution that's going to come in AI, and what you're going to see from Airbnb next year is not for us to become an AI native app.
Right.
You're going to see our first foray into what I described as AI search, but eventually we and every other app that wants to survive has to be an AI app. I don't think there will be a tech company that's not an AI company.
And would it be agentic AI as we understand it today? Like, would you launch agents like we would as consumers launch agents that goes on Airbnb, does all the searches that we need to do and finds something and brings it back to me?
I think it's going to be a little bit like that, but like for anyone watching that has an executive assistant, and most executives have executive assistants, maybe they plan your travel, but you kind of like want to see a lot of options, and depends how particular you are. Number one, I think it's going to be a little bit more iterative than a typical agent. I do think they're going to be so-called agentic. Like I think the Airbnb app is going to be like a concierge, but I think you're going to want a lot of options, right? Instead of just showing me the 3 things I want, I might want to see more variety. I might want to, it's going to be a lot of push and pull, almost like Minority Report, where like, it's not going to have all the gestures, but it's going to be a little more conversational, I think is what's going to happen. But I do think it's going to be somewhat agentic, but I don't think we're going to do is say, get me an Airbnb and Sea Ranch on these dates and just comes back and it books for you. I think people are going to want to look in the store and see what's available.
So we have a couple of minutes left. I want to do something different than we've done in the past, which is do some rapid fire questions, because I think that's kind of fun. Will people still own cars in 2035?
There's going to be a very long tail. Yes, but not, yes, I think so. I think self-driving cars are like those rapid fire. In 2015, everyone said, people driving cars in 2020.
Yeah.
It's now 2025 and Waymo's in like 4 cities. Yeah. I think by 2035, self-driving cars would be the dominant way to travel, but I still think there's going to be a multi-decade technological transition, and I still think people are going to own cars all over the world. This is going to take a while.
Which will happen first, fully autonomous cars or AGI?
AGI. Well, I mean, there are fully autonomous cars. You mean like AGI is going to happen far sooner than fully autonomous cars are in cities all over the world.
So what's the sentiment in Silicon Valley? Because you're based there. There was much like these cars. It was a lot of hype, and now people are trying to pull back on the AGI hype. How much should we give stock in that?
I think that's what's happening. So I think what's happening is I'm not an AI person per se. I just talk to AI people. So I'm a designer, but I know people, all the companies, I know the researchers, and here's what I'm hearing from them. What I'm hearing is that they're still making progress, but the technology is starting to hit a wall, that bigger, better models don't necessarily, they may or may not achieve AGI, and that at least a lot of researchers believe they need another breakthrough. They need some other breakthroughs. And again, I don't know if every researcher agrees with this. I think some researchers think we can just keep throwing more money at it. We can just make like general improvements, and the larger models will get us to AGI. By the way, you have to find what AGI is. That's a goalpost that keeps moving. And now they're saying AGI is super intelligence. We probably reach AGI if by AGI you mean you can't discern if it's an AI or a human. We've reached that probably already in many forays. We've reached the Turing test. But I think this so-called superintelligence, which is now the kind of new goalpost for AGI, I think everyone's saying there need to be new breakthroughs. Now, the good news, here's the good news that I would say to every investor and everyone watching. I don't think we need AGI to transform the economy. I think the AI that exists right now is already good enough to transform the global economy in almost every app and every website. If, as a hypothetical thought experiment, we were told AI can't get any better, there's a freeze on innovation for 10 years, you could still revolutionize the global economy by rebuilding every application and every service with today's frontier models in mind. It's already good enough to plan a trip. We just need to essentially build the interfaces and the applications for it. And frankly, here's my other argument. If you can't figure out how to change your app for AI, how are you going to figure it out for AGI? And so I think the goal of the economy should not be waiting for AGI. I don't think we should be waiting for AGI. I don't think we wait for superintelligence. I think the thing we should be waiting for is, when does AI change the daily life of regular people? And that happens when apps become AI apps. As simple as that.
And the AI apps may not be the apps the containers may not be the exact same way that they are today.
I think so long as the iPhone or a phone is the dominant form factor, they're going to be apps. If Apple or Google decided to disremediate apps, they can do that. I don't think they're going to do that because they have a whole ecosystem. And then, like, if they're going to disremediate, they need to have better solutions. Then you have developers, so I think this decade, you're still going to have little squares on your phone that we're going to call apps, and they're going to be AI apps. I think in the 2030s, then there may be new hardware where we might be living in I don't know if it's a post-app world, but maybe where AI is built a little bit more into the interface. But the phones will either have to have a revolutionary change, or we'll need new devices to do that.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating if in 10 years
And again, it's hard to predict because this is totally out of our hands. We're just the developers, and it's really about the hardware makers. But it has to exist. The people making the operating systems will decide this. So right now, the people who make the operating systems are also making the hardware. And it's really just two companies, Google and Apple.
Well, we have to end here because we're already over 9 minutes over time, Brian. It's always great to talk to you. And I really hope we'll see you in person next year.
Oh, thank you. I hope to be back soon.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode featuring Brian Chesky, the CEO and founder of Airbnb. If you like this episode, or if you like other content on this show, make sure to leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, share with a friend, like and subscribe to our other content on Skift.com. And of course, like always, we'll see you guys again next week. Hey listeners, this episode is brought to you by EF World Journeys. Today's travelers want more from their vacation. That's why more people are turning to travel professionals to help them explore the world with confidence. For nearly 35 years, EF World Journeys has been the go-to guided experiential travel company for leisure travelers who want to learn more about people, places, and cultures around the world. Its brands EF Ultimate Break, EF Go Ahead Tours, and EF Adventures serve everyone from Gen Z to baby boomers and help tens of thousands of US and Canadian travelers every year explore 400 bucket list destinations. EF World Journeys is one of North America's biggest guided group tour companies, and its expert planned immersive itineraries focus on the big moments and little things that make travel and meeting new people so rewarding. It's experiential travel that goes deeper, where every journey builds a connection, inspires wellness, and fuels a lifelong love of learning. EF World Journeys, guided by experts, driven by curiosity. To learn more, go to efworldjourneys.com.